Do you want an army of squirrels that can make an Eldrazi look like an all-you-can-eat buffet? And here is a live example of what just one of those squirrels could do.
You cocksucker!
Simply amazing. Probably wondering, what's probably the best squirrel to go with in order to start combos? Well, look no further than Shatterfang Squirrel General. A squirrel that essentially has Forest Walk, and if one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead. Also has the activated ability of paying 1 black mana, sacrificing any amount of squirrels, and a target creature will get minus that much to its toughness, thus killing it if you sacrifice enough squirrels. When you pair this with Pitless Plunderer, you essentially can start cannibalizing your own squirrels and always giving you death triggers. So essentially anything that can start pinging people will essentially kill them inevitably. If you're just interested in death triggers, you can also go Tooth and Claw to sacrifice 2 creatures and get a 3/1 red beast. Then essentially you are going to get a squirrel, you just sacrifice them both, and then you're going to get another beast, another squirrel, and you can keep doing that over and over. A card that pairs quite nicely with most squirrels is also an enchantment called Earthcraft. Essentially you can tap an untapped creature and it lets you untap a target basic land. When you pair these two with Ruthless Knave, an orc pirate that you pay 2 and a black and sacrifice a creature, you can then create 2 colorless treasure tokens. He also has the activated ability of sacrificing 3 treasures and drawing a card. This will net you essentially infinite mana, infinite card draw. You'll essentially be able to do whatever you want in that turn if you have some type of haste or maybe just an X spell. Bootlegger's Stash is also a decent card to generate infinite mana with this combo as well. Gave can also be used for infinite sacrifice triggers as well, since he is able to create bodies as well. Let's go back to Ruthless Knave, because he has other abilities that can be comboed off if you don't have Earthcraft. If you have essentially Ashiod's Altar, you can do essentially the same thing, getting yourself infinite mana and getting infinite card draw off of that. There's also the typical of token doublers, anything from Primal Vigor to Doubling Season will just make any token doubler broken at that point. Ashiod's Altar works exceptionally well with Shatterfang Squirrel General as well, because you can have other comboed cards with him as well, such as Sorcerer's Broom, which will net you infinite death triggers and colorless mana as well. My personal favorite is Slimefoot Stowaway, which has the activated ability of paying 4 and making a 1/1 green sapperling, and whenever your sapperlings dies, it's going to do 1 damage to each opponent and you will gain 1 life. With this combo, you're essentially just going to win the game if they have no way to stop your interaction. Requiem Angel is also a great addition because it will generate you infinite colorless mana as well. But if you're looking for colored mana, you can change out Ashiod's Altar for Phyrexian Altar, thus giving you infinite colored mana as well. I find Shatterfang to be probably the best squirrel in all of Magic the Gathering, or a close second if not. I really find him to be one of the all-stars in token creations as well for a creature. Now my second favorite squirrel isn't even actually a squirrel, it's Scurry Oak, which has the ability to evolve, so whenever a creature enters the battlefield under my control and it controls greater power or toughness than Scurry Oak, it's going to get a +1 counter, and whenever it gets a +1 counter, you get to create a 1/1 squirrel. If you pair this with the artifact Coat of Arms, then each creature gets a +1/+1 for each creature on the battlefield that shares at least 1 creature type with it. So if you're able to at least get a couple squirrels out there, then every +1 counter that you put on Scurry Oak is going to create a squirrel that's going to have more power than Scurry Oak, which will then evolve it, giving you another squirrel which will have more power, thus continuing the cycle. One of the best cards to combo with Scurry Oak, though, has to be Ivy Lane Denizen, which has the ability whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on target creature. So essentially, if you have either order, play Ivy Lane Denizen or Scurry Oak's going to be able to evolve or get a +1 counter because of Ivy Lane Denizen, which will then put a green squirrel out there, which will then give him another +1 counter as well from Ivy Lane Denizen. Rosie is also a newer creature that does the pretty much similar effect. As long as a token's created, you can put a +1 counter on any creature, which, thank God, the squirrels coming in are tokens as well. Even older cards, such as Carther's Crusade, which is an enchantment that whenever a creature enters the battlefield, give a +1 counter on all your creatures, makes Scurry Oak go ballistic as well. Another crazy card that works with Scurry Oak has to be Yawgmoth Thran Physician, which has protection from humans, which doesn't do a whole lot, but he has the activated ability of paying 1 life, sacrificing another creature, putting a -1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and drawing a card. Now, as long as you have a way to gain life from bodies entering the battlefield, you can essentially hold priority, have Yawgmoth enter the battlefield, evolve the Scurry Oak, and then pay the 1 life from Yawgmoth, sacrificing another creature that you hopefully have on the battlefield, put a 1 negative counter on Scurry Oak, causing me to draw a card. Then you also gain a life from anything that also is on the battlefield, like a Soul Warden, or any number of cards that can do it. And then essentially after you gain that 1 life, you resolve the trigger of getting the +1 counter on the Scurry Oak, which will then get you a 1/1 squirrel. Then after that, you hold priority again, pay the 1 life, sacrifice another creature, hopefully not that squirrel, hopefully you have 1 more creature out there, and then you will then repeat the same steps. Put a -1 counter onto the Scurry Oak, which will then also give you a +1 life gain from the creature entering the battlefield, and then all of a sudden you can repeat those steps. I personally like Daxos because you'll gain infinite life, because whenever it enters or dies, you gain 1 life. But you can also choose Cruel Celebrant or maybe even a Blood Artist if you're looking to also drain all your opponents of their life as well. Another card that works exceptionally well with Scurry Oak has to be Heliod's Suncrown, because whenever you gain life, you're able to put a +1 counter onto Scurry Oak. So if you have any of those life gain mechanics whenever bodies enter the battlefield, then you will essentially get infinite squirrels, infinite life gain, and also infinite bodies on the battlefield. But as you can see from these combos, that Scurry Oak is a very exceptional squirrel for not even being a squirrel. And you're probably asking yourself, where do all these squirrels come from? Well, I give you one option. They come from the trees. So this leaves Squirrel Nest to be my 3rd favorite out of all the squirrel creations out there. It's an enchantment for 3 mana, which you essentially enchant any land, and you can tap the land to create a 1/1 green squirrel. When you pair this with the enchantment Earthcraft, you can essentially get very nasty very early on by creating infinite amount of squirrels right at the beginning of the game. Another card that pairs amazing with this is Intruder Alarm, which essentially says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you can then start to untap your creatures. If you pair this with something like Arbor Elf, this will cause a loop where essentially you can tap your land, create a creature, which will then untap Arbor Elf, which you can then tap that land again to get the green creature, untap the Arbor Elf, and keep doing it over and over. Some notable mentions though are any creatures that essentially can untap lands, or lands themselves that are creatures. So you got like the Dryad Arbor or Blossom Dryad, but there's many options to choose from, so you only have to find one to pick, and then, or have many so you can have repeatability as well. One of my new favorite cards to combo with Squirrel Nest has to be Ashaya, Soul of the Wild, which essentially turns all of your non-token creatures into forest lands. So you can essentially tap this onto any creature that can untap itself when another creature enters the battlefield. So you have creatures like Midnight Guard, and also the old card Sunstrike Legionnaire. Either one of these creatures will essentially allow you to constantly get infinite squirrels because they untap themselves as soon as the squirrels enter the battlefield. Hey guys, thanks for watching, appreciate your time, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Definitely will be trying to make more combo videos, or just in general Magic the Gathering videos here in the late future. And be sure to watch out for those squirrels, you never know when one will catch you by surprise.
Yeah!